Welcome back to Community Group. Hope you're eating good, and I'm going to just dive in right now to what we're talking about tonight. So if you weren't with us this past week, I hope this video will kind of catch you up to speed to where we're at. And so we've been going through our sermon series called Vintage, Rediscovering God's Grace in the Old Testament. And so with this story, I'm going to give you a short outline of Exodus chapters 1 through 15. It's the story of how God led his people out of the slavery of Egypt into the Promised Land by raising up Moses and Aaron as well. And so what we're going to see in chapter 1, it's actually just a bridge to kind of end the book of Genesis and start the book of Exodus. Joseph has died. We talked about Joseph being brought into Egypt by the evil of his brothers, but God redeemed it for their good to save the family from famine. So their family has grown into a nation of true people, and these people are enslaved by Egypt now. Once again, hundreds of years have passed. There's a new Pharaoh. He has forgotten about the good things that Joseph had done for his people, and so he has now enslaved Israel, and he's using it for his gain and also creating a slow genocide. What Pharaoh underestimated was the growth of Israel, so he starts getting a little scared, and he orders the murder of all firstborn sons of Israel. Moses is born during this time. Mother does not want him to die, so she sticks him in a basket and puts him out in the river. If you think about how crazy that is, to put in perspective, a mother thought the safety of her baby was better in a basket in the river than in her arms. And that was the time they were living in. And God had a hand in all that and led Moses to one of the princesses of Egypt, and she raised Moses as her own. Moses, in chapter 3, he flees Egypt and encounters God at the burning bush. God raises up Moses and his brother Aaron to be leaders of the people of Israel, to lead them out of Egypt. And so Moses and Aaron, they go back to Egypt, plea with Pharaoh to let God's people go. Pharaoh's actually appalled that they would even bring up another god to him, because Pharaoh himself would have been considered a god of the day. And so he belittles the God of Israel, he belittles the God of Yahweh, tells them to leave. And every time Pharaoh says no, God sends plagues. He sends 10 plagues. I think they're around chapters 5 through 7 as well. These plagues were to show Israel that God would ultimately lead them out of their slavery. And it was also to humiliate Egypt for trying to belittle the glory of God. And so with each of these plagues is actually an attack on all these false Egyptian gods as well. Moving on to chapters 12 through 13, God commands his people to perform these rituals, to remember all that he's done for them, to deliver them out of the hands of Egypt. And then in chapter 14 through 15, you see God delivering them out of slavery. And so after the last plague, Pharaoh says, fine, your people can go. He recants that statement and wants to destroy the nation of Israel. God performs a miracle through Moses. They see that the Egyptian army is after them. Moses parts the Red Sea, and the people of Israel go through. And when the army of Egypt try to attack the people of Israel, the waves come crashing in on the army and Pharaoh. And so what Pharaoh meant to destroy in the people of Israel ultimately was the end of Pharaoh. And so that's our story. That's where God has led us tonight. And so the question is now is, how does this story apply to us and affect our hearts in the year 2022? And so there's so many different side stories that you can talk about, but I think there are four main things that I think we should really look at. One is this: slavery makes us seek comfort in a master, but not necessarily a redeemer. The second thing is this: God's love is the only power that can save us from our slavery. Third is the God of love will turn into the God of war for you. And fourth is a God who redeems is a God that we can trust. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that refreshes your memory or catches you up to speed. But I really hope that this leads to good conversation, and look forward to hearing from you guys. Thanks.